where hopefully my thing is working better. So we should be live on Facebook as well as on our page.
Yeah, you're live now.
Which is going live on
confirmed.
as well as
Yep.
on.
Sorry,
All right.
you're live.
I'm going to turn that off. Okay. All right. So the other thing we're trying to confirm is if we're live on YouTube as well.
Right.
The YouTube. I'm
and
gonna go on
so
the YouTube.
Hopefully,
We're expanding
if we go
our
on,
streaming services.
Yes. If you go on our St. Paul's website and go to the worship page, you should be able to see something happening there as well. So that hopefully makes it possible for a lot of people to join us and enjoy participating in some of our services. So with that said, we are at 7:30. I just want to take the moment to invite people who may be joining us at this moment on Facebook and other places. So at this time, let's just see if we can go there on Facebook and see if anyone is.
Okay, and Amanda confirmed we are going live on YouTube as well.
Yeah, live on Facebook. Sandy confirmed that. So Sandy should be watching you on Facebook. Might want to do that in the background.
That's wonderful. Absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
So hopefully we can actually see people and also interact with them. So Amanda, maybe if you could just make sure that we can interact with people on Facebook.
Yep.
And those who are coming in, if you could just say hello to them, that would be awesome.
Okay.
That would be
She's on it.
awesome. All right. So we're going to just begin in just a moment. And we do have a few more people who are joining us. This is absolutely wonderful. We have, let's see, we have quite a few people today here. We have Julie, and I think we have the light. We have the light. And we have,
Hi, Chris.
I think it's Winnie.
It was part of the readings today.
Do you see me?
And this is absolutely wonderful. Yes, wonderful, guys. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people online, I think, right now. So this is wonderful. Okay.
Hi, Scott.
Can
you see me?
I'm going to try this. And would anyone like to say anything so that we can do some sound check? Why don't we start with you, Chris?
Okay, I've Amanda and myself here from our nice warm Shelton home.
Unfortunately, it seems I can't hear you. A second. Oh.
Okay.
Right, a second. All right.
Okay, can you hear me now? Does that work?
Okay. I'm having problems hearing people. So, okay. It helps if I don't have my thing muted. All right. Okay. Now, Chris, you could say something, please.
Okay. Can everyone hear the computer?
Yep. Yes.
Okay. Perfect.
How about me? Everyone's hearing me okay?
Awesome.
Yes.
Great.
Can everyone?
How about me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Winnie.
Yeah,
Yes.
Can you see me?
No,
we can hear you though.
How do I get this on now?
We see your, we
Okay.
see the
Every-
light. We see the light. How's
Yeah,
I
that?
see that my video is blocked off, but when I go to click on it, it comes up rename. I can't click on it.
No.
Like a
Oh,
pop-up
okay.
comes on.
Oh,
You have a
All
very
right.
pleasant aura.
okay.
Plots right now.
You know, you are providing us with the theme for tonight. And
Yeah, so there's Winnie.
I don't know how many of
Oh,
you
there you are,
got a
Winnie.
chance to look
I
at.
made it.
And Barbara's here. That's good.
Yep.
Awesome.
Hi, Barbara.
Hi.
That's wonderful. There you go. Okay. So why don't we do this? So I'm going to share our. Can everyone see the Old Testament lesson?
I have it on my phone.
Yes.
Yes, we
Yeah.
can.
Okay, but you can see it. All right.
Now it looks a little
no,
bit like
So
that's
the
different
first
language.
lesson.
Is it in
It-
Hebrew?
it's in it's in Sanskrit.
I was just gonna say that.
Oh, really?
Hiding from us.
I have it on my phone.
Okay.
Do you guys have your phones with it on?
All right. So you should be able to see my screen, no?
It's not
We
looking.
see your screen, but it's not, it's a
Decipherable.
whole different language. It's just black and white.
Oh. Okay, let's try it again. All right. How about now?
Mm,
Still can't read it.
No.
Yeah. Okay, why don't I just share with you what it says, because I think I'm having trouble, which I expected everyone to have troubles with internet bandwidth, because now everyone is online, right? So our gospel lesson today is from Gospel of John, chapter 9, and the first 41 verses. And that is quite a few verses.
The audio is very
The
bad.
story there is the story there is about the person who was blind, and but now he is able to see, and he's being questioned by the Pharisees, and I think we're all familiar with the story. So if you would like to read it on your own on your devices, that is wonderful. I will try again to make it shareable here as well, and see if that would work. So let's see if that works. How about now? Is anything?
Indecipherable.
Indecipherable?
Yeah.
You can't see it yet? Okay. So we're just gonna go without it. Okay, and so that's the Gospel of John, and then we also have with us here the can people turn off their volumes, please? Can you please turn off your volumes? Okay. Excellent. All right. Okay, so the lesson from the Old Testament is about the anointing of David, and uh, Samuel is asked by the Lord to go and find David, and he goes to the house of Jesse, and he goes through all his brothers, and then says, "You have another son?" And I do actually, and he's taking care of the sheep. And so finally, Samuel finds David and sees that he is the one, and then anoints him. So that's the lesson from the Old Testament. And then we have Psalm 23, which everyone is quite familiar with, which is the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not be in want. He makes me lie down in green pasture, leads me beside still waters. And then the epistle is from the letter to the Ephesians, chapter 5, and from verses 8 to 14. Once you were darkness, but now in the Lord you are light. Live as children of light, for the fruit of life is found in all that is good and right and true. Try to find out what is pleasing to the Lord. Take no part in the unfruitful works of darkness, but instead expose them. For it is shameful even to mention what such people do secretly. But everything exposed by the light becomes visible. But everything that is visible, therefore it says, "Sleeper, awake, and Christ will shine on you." So those are all the readings that we have for today. And now we'll just open the conversation and ask all of you if you would like to participate. What did you think? Any thoughts?
Amjad, can you say that again?
Any thoughts on those readings? Any thoughts on those readings?
I can jump in. So the interesting thing I found in the gospel was, and this I think can probably relate to us sometimes, is the unbelieving, that the Pharisees, the blind man was brought to them, they didn't believe him. They went and found the parents, they still didn't believe them. They brought the blind man back again, didn't believe him again. So just the idea of, you see everything with your own eyes and we're not believing. Sometimes we may make up our own rules, our own reality, and kind of ties into where we are now as a society, that we've been given advice, and maybe we're not listening to it. So just to listen what's out there and keep an open mind about what is what we see and what we hear.
And it comes to me to build on that, Chris, is the idea that we're open to what we consider to be impossible, or maybe previously impossible. There are all kinds of opportunities out there if we avail ourselves to them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's a great way to look at everything, Scott. That like we say, everything is possible with the Lord.
Yeah,
Right.
That's right.
And so I find it very interesting that the people who are questioning him are constantly saying one thing, that how can this be, right? This is not how it's supposed to be. You were born blind, and how can it be that you can actually see? And they could only think of one thing, that you were born blind because someone had sinned. So your blindness is related to someone else's sin. And so they were very concrete thinkers, right?
Mhm.
They had things all figured out, and nothing could deviate from that way of thinking. And they were having problems with, how can it be that what we know is no longer true, right? And how can it be that what is concrete can actually be not the truth in this case? How can anyone deviate from the concrete, right? Or the known or the imaginable? How can you actually imagine it to be in ways that we have never imagined before, right? And so it's a very interesting conversation that takes place there. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, I thought it's very interesting that in at one point when his parents are being asked this question, uh, what's going on? Who is this guy? And there is a line there that it says, for the Jews had already agreed that anyone who confessed Jesus to be the Messiah would be put out of the synagogue. I mean, I had never thought of this before, but the fear, I mean, we are thinking about social distancing and we are practicing this social distancing. Tonight is our small group, and we were hoping to be all together in one room, and we are online because of social distancing, right? Um, and so the interesting part about it is that there is a great fear there. There's a great fear there, right? That
Mhm.
we will not be part of the synagogue anymore and that we would be thrown out of the synagogue. So I thought that was very, very interesting. The whole idea of being socially isolated and how big a fear that is. What do you all think about that?
I mean, this seems to be a kind of a recurring theme in this part of John's gospel as well. That, a couple weeks ago, the reading was, the man who came to Jesus by night because he, didn't want to come to him in the daylight. And here, like you said, the parents are even, the man's parents are, distancing themselves from him, saying he's old enough, you can ask him.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, I'm
definitely
building
seem.
on what you, sorry.
Go ahead,
Go
Scott.
ahead, Chris. No, I'm John. I was building on what you were thinking or what you mentioned in regards to concrete thinking and the way your group was meeting tonight was concretely something that everyone's used to. But now that we've seen the light, there's a new and different way to do that. And it's uncomfortable at first, but it's happening, isn't it? And all things are possible, as we said earlier, through God.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. But it is hard to imagine, right? It is hard to imagine when in non-concrete ways. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh yeah, even 3 weeks ago, could we have imagined we would have a Sunday service with everyone remote? And I think that went better than any of us could have thought, allowing us to connect. Even Scott and Sandy, you guys down in South Carolina, were able to to still be part of that. So there, and I'm not saying that's the way we will stay, but there's learnings from all of this, and that the new reality can have different ways, that now that we know that this is not a concrete has to be A, B, and C, that there's
Right.
other ways we can incorporate into the way we share our faith moving forward.
Mhm. Very true. Very true.
Any other thoughts?
One of my friends, I think you know Father Amjad, that a good friend of mine is a priest. And he made an announcement yesterday that at their church, they were going to try to do mass through video like you've been doing. And he was kind of uncomfortable with it because I don't think anybody really knew what to expect. It's never really been done before.
Mhm.
And then they did the first mass televised online yesterday for St. Patrick's Day. And he kind of related the mass a lot to the whole story of St. Patrick. And
Mhm.
it really, it went well. And then they did it again today because they do mass every day. And
Mhm.
all the viewers really liked the whole idea of it being online, especially a lot of the elderly people that normally, even without this virus going on, a lot of times can't make it to mass.
Mhm.
So it's kind of like, I think it's kind of surprised everybody for a lot of different reasons.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, absolutely.
Hmm.
And that's kind of a theme in the Old Testament too, isn't it? That uh, David was a surprise. Who would have, like my late uh, father-in-law would say, who would have thunked? You know, and this guy is the youngest in the family, is the little boy, right? And
Mhm.
he comes home and he is the one who gets consecrated to be the next leader. Who would have thought that? And that's like breaking away from the norm as well. And that's quite interesting, isn't it? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And any other thoughts that you might have about these readings?
So my thought is that fear was guiding a lot of, was guiding everybody's behavior. Just fear, like you said, of
Mhm.
being outcasted, fear of, well,
Mhm.
if what I believed was the only way this could be and it's not, what does that mean? And I
Mhm.
think that's very applicable to right now. Like we're so used to just our way of life, and it's completely turned upside down on its head right now. And like
Mhm.
we have a decision to make. We can either be inflexible and fearful and um, kind of go into this kicking and screaming, or like Chris said, be um, more open to change and doing things a little bit differently than maybe they've ever been done before. And
Mhm.
that's all
Mhm.
about like um, embracing this instead of fearing it.
Mhm.
Embracing that, like it's okay for things to be unsettling and different and scary, but if we uh, if we embrace that there still are possibilities of having love and light and being there for others and being in community, then it will be okay. We'll find our way.
Mhm. Mhm.
So it's like we have an awareness now that maybe they didn't have back then.
Sure. Yeah.
And Julie, I think that's a really
But
good point that you
I
bring up.
Thanks.
go ahead.
It's a really good point that you bring up about the idea of fear, because even tying into the 23rd Psalm, which I think most of us know
Yeah.
a good portion of, but just rereading it again, I think sometimes we forget about the second part of that of stanza 4. The first part we know, though I walk through the
Yes.
valley of the shadow of death, I shall have no fear. But that second part, for you are with me, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. That idea that
Mhm.
why we don't have to fear, because God and Jesus, they're here with us. They
Mhm.
are going to be the ones that support us, and we have to have trust in that. That
Mhm.
there's always a new solution.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I was reading a very interesting article the other day. One of my colleagues had posted. It was rather long, but it was talking about several different things. It was really philosophical, different, you know, main thought people were being quoted. But the idea that we are always trying to look for freedom, and we want to be looking to be imaginative and creative and moving and thinking outside the box. And in some ways, that's what we are trying to do here, right? Like I love to say that we planned these lantern reflections and all what we are doing right now, just as we are doing it way before this whole uh, pandemic hit us, right? So we had already planned to do it this way, and so we are not doing this out of fear. We were doing it because that's how a lot of people relate to each other, and the church has to be able to relate to people. And I think one of the wake up calls is that the church has not been relatable and has not made the effort to relate to where people's lives is and how people live their life. But here's a very interesting thing that article was hitting on. And I also heard at our mission conference, our speaker also hit on it. And it's the same thing. The rod and the staff, they comfort me. Okay, we are not tuned to think that way. We don't ever think that a rod and a staff can actually be a comforting thing. How can something that restricts you, brings you into something, how can that be comforting, right? We don't believe in institutions. In fact, one of the greater challenges today is that we don't believe in institutions, right? uh, More and more younger people are saying that we have problem with institution, and that's why we are not in church. uh, and interestingly, the verse there is the rod and the staff, they comfort me. Interestingly, in order to actually arrive at imaginative and creative solutions, you need to have a certain boundary to think in. And that is what our speaker had talked about at his keynote address as well, that the people in this workshop who were given free hand in just being creative, and those who were actually given some boundaries, the results were that those who
Oh,
had
yes.
boundaries much better than those who had no boundaries whatsoever. And
Yeah.
there it is. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Some kind of boundary, not that we want to like fit people in a box that we want people to be in, but there is some kind of a boundary that helps the process of imagination and creativity, right? And so how are we actually experiencing that is a very interesting thing to wrestle with. And this whole article was this tension that we have in our society, where when we move more and more towards the idea of freedom, we are seeing we are losing more and more of it because of the lack of that boundary around us, or thinking in ways that are creative. So thank you, Chris, for bringing up that point. For your rod and your staff, they comfort me. uh, I can tell you one thing right now, that institutions that have, and this is not going to go well with, I know, with a lot of people, but here's the thing: institutions that have a good line and channel of command will do well in a situation of emergency, right? And institutions that don't have a good channel and well-defined command structure will not survive in a case of emergency, right? So this is very interesting, and I think churches need to think about that a lot. If we are going to receive this as a wake up call and move forward into the world, we need to understand that there is a comfort in that rod and the staff. And it's a very interesting thing to even talk about, but there is that. So why don't we? I know we are at 7:58, and we have always promised people that we will close before 8 o'clock. Why don't we do this? Uh, would anyone who hasn't had any opportunity to share, if you have the Psalm 23 in front of you, would you like to read it? And we can then just close with that, if that's a possibility.
Um,
I could read it.
Awesome, Vinny. Thank you.
The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not be in want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He revives my soul and guides me along right pathways for his name's sake. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You spread a table before me in the presence of those who trouble me. You have anointed my head with oil, and my cup is running over. Surely your goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
Thank you so much, Vinny. And with that prayer, we are going to end our live streaming. So if you are watching us, please do take care of yourself and your loved ones. We are going to do this again on Wednesday next week. We are going to we are hoping that we will have less technical problems then than we did today. But I think once we got over that, this was wonderful. Also, I do want to share that very soon there will be an announcement being made about um, uh, our efforts in the neighborhoods. We are forming neighborhood groups, and very soon we will be making an announcement about that. And the idea is to create opportunities for people to not feel socially isolated in this time of physical distancing that we are practicing to protect ourselves from this virus. So be safe, take care, and always know that God is with you. We're going to only end the live stream here, and then we are going to continue as